His name, Merlin.
What is going on, nomads, party people, and strangers everywhere across the internet? My name is V, and right now I am so happy right now. Woo! Okay, we're getting back into the weekly thing of the Merlin weekly reviews as the last one, because starting in June, we're going back to being human. But how do we end off the weekly stuff with Merlin for now? Well, since it's the second to last video, we're going to be short reviews. We're doing Lancelot and Guinevere. Now, this episode is kind of important for a lot of different elements that are coming up really soon in the show, because for one, it establishes the love triangle that's been persistent in all of Arthurian lore that can go one of two ways, which is the love triangle of Guinevere, Lancelot, and Arthur. Now, Arthur right now cannot be with Gwen because she's a servant, although we all know from Arthurian lore that Gwen is going to be the future Queen of Camelot that rules alongside Arthur. However, her other lover in all of Arthurian lore has always been Sir Lancelot, one of his Knights of the Round Table, which has always been a very big constant within all of Arthurian lore because no one knew who Gwen would choose, because some versions say that she would secretly be with Lancelot while also being with Arthur. Some of them had stories where Arthur died and she ran off to Lancelot. Others said that Lancelot died and she settled with Arthur. There's no real clear way about how to go about this. Second big thing that happened, world building. Like a lot of stuff with world building, where you had certain earmarked stuff away from the Castle of Camelot to give you a new amount of stuff with monsters in various different towns and villages and different pathways to kind of give it to you in a bigger spectrum that the world actually is indeed bigger. Instead of the outlining villages, it shows real depth. New forest locations, caverns, a different castle with different people and society members. Even if you freeze frame and just see how people interact, the costumes that are designed look a lot more shoddy and a little bit more torn up than those from Camelot, instrumenting a different sort of kingdom aspect, making it a very different ball game. And the third and final thing that kind of implements this whole thing is the dichotomy between both Arthur and Merlin and Gwen and Morgana, where as you see both of them having their own different paradigm shifts with one another, where it seems like they're friend or master and servant. These episodes lately kind of show that there are indeed more depths, where Arthur can at least talk to Merlin, even though it's kind of like a very friendship where it seems more like brother ribbing on one another as time goes on, where Arthur tries to act like he's the more competent one with all the ideas and talents, when Merlin, as we see, has the actual talents that doesn't really say much. A lot of people say I remind them of Merlin in that regard, but I don't see why. And the dichotomy between Morgana and Gwen, which we didn't get a real clear picture of in earlier episodes and in the first season, does show that it's indeed a full-blown friendship and sisterhood. But there's gonna be some stuff that's gonna be important to reflect on that as time goes on throughout that dichotomy. We'll get into that when the time comes. Along with that sort of stuff, the only other thing that kind of earmarks this episode as being very important is the return of Lancelot. Since the last time we saw him in the first season, he went off and didn't come back to Camelot out of shame for not earning it the way that he wanted to. However, this episode kind of gives a small little glimpse of hope for future seasons that he'll return, which by the time that we've already finished this entire series, you'll know that Lancelot, as I've already pointed out, is one of the Knights of the Round Table for King Arthur. We all know he's going to come back to the series. The question, though, is when by all these whole recaps. And I think that's all I can really say about this whole episode without trying to go into a full-blown review for scene and doing a full-blown recap, because I don't know, we're only one review away from going back to the regular stuff of doing full-blown recap of stuff, so we'll save that for after we're done with the first new episode of Being Human in June. Anyway, though, we'll come back to Merlin in July, but until then, have a mystical day, everyone.